you have to just use a Google Plus account. You can log onto that computer as volunteer or your account. Then you just log onto the event using your Google Plus account.
Okay.
I'm only talking about the virtual participant.
Right.
First line is providing any else.
I got scolded.
Stealing shares.
Well, they were stacked up in the corner.
I saw him earlier. Okay.
That's what I was going to say. It's on? We have room for all
There's 2 chairs in back on that.
On 11, 12, and 13.
It's kind of concerned because we have about making it.
I've flown a lot to Vegas, so
Yeah, everybody does.
yeah, going around Las Vegas to
Everyone, no one likes it. And they yell at you, hurry, hurry, hurry.
That's true too.
There's the original.
And then on the other side of it, when you come out of Las Vegas, hurry, 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 get high, get fast. What are you doing? What you're listening at?
Yeah, right.
That's nice.
Oh yeah, just to show you. We got one view. We do have one view.
All right. So
Yeah, there's somebody, there's Stevens.
We go to Las Vegas a lot. We go to Las Vegas a lot. You know, those are problems that, yeah, and there's no way you're not going to sit there and try to rip up cars and go out. We're going to make you torment you so we stop down the car. But one of the things that I want you to really think about is ahead of time. Normally, what I would brief you on is a flight like this.
Of course, I didn't add
With
it.
a 4:30 departure. So the problem with 4:30 departure.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to wait a passenger going to the treatment center that day or to get back to your.
Can I change my
So I
mind
have
and say I don't want to go?
Nope. Yeah, the problem with that is you're there.
I don't have a choice.
That's hot. You've got an hour and 40 minutes to get out there. You know, let's say if you really did get off at 4:30, 5:30, you're there at 10 after 5. By the time the passenger gets out of
Oh, there you
6
go.
o'clock.
Because this was all instructed, so.
That's if everything goes fine. You know, because first what might happen is you might have to go, John Wayne, SNA, up to Santa Monica to pick him up, and then fly out.
That's exactly how.
Right. And kind of the point we're getting at is just hypothetically suppose some thunderstorms. Now you're stuck. You have to wait. You can wait till midnight or 1 in the morning until thunderstorms come out and fly home, or you can spend the night. So the problem is when the Chinese start working against you, you know, if you have
Josh, the Google Plus is
logged
into your account, is that all right?
No. Don't try to view it in my account.
The problem is, when you leave Las Vegas, you're totally
Because
yourself.
I think it's logged in as
Now
me
you wait
there.
for an hour and a
Need to
half.
fly France.
And just
Here.
suppose you had to make a real instrument of that. Sure. At the end of the day,
Mess it
you're
up.
tired and
Usually you need to here and I'm on to, no, click up here, sorry, in the
yeah,
icon.
so you know, you may or may not use it.
The
point is, you might have some fatigue. That's what I'm worried about. Not so much when you leave, it's all excited. Now what happens is, you're gonna go, once you get 30 miles south of 2G, the desert is absolutely pitch black. So now you're not.
Yeah, come on. We need to find the,
high part of your apartment.
Do you go to that link?
Then you fly a little farther, a little longer, and you see a little bit of color.
Or I guess you can visit the Angel Flight.
You still have a very long tree. So it's a difficult flight coming home at night. And so that's what I always worry about is watch your timing on the afternoon departure. You kind of have a faster early.
I used to bring her back
Took there, right?
It's been a long time.
Oh, it's hot.
All right, we're in.
This one might be a little harder.
Yeah, that was definitely, because it's nothing's brought forward.
Well, I think it's
Good afternoon, everyone.
What happens is, you know.
Can I have your attention, please, for just a few moments? Thank you for being here today. We're actually live on a webinar with 4 other mission orientation or pilot applicants, and they're from someplace in the 13 western states. What I'd like to do today is just make a few comments to the folks that are doing the virtual orientation via the webinar here, and you folks here in this room, and then we'll get back to doing the paperwork with you folks, and then the folks here on the webinar are going to have an opportunity to ask some questions and answers, and you will as well. And then we'll dismiss them and then get ready and do the rest of the paperwork. I just want to, let me introduce myself. Vince Giampa, the Southern California wing leader and also a mission orientation pilot. I just want to welcome everyone here and thank you for attending our first virtual command pilot orientation. Each of you has a mission orientation pilot assigned to you or available to you. The ones on the virtual orientation have been assigned orientation pilots and have had sent their paperwork into those mission orientation pilots for documentation. I hope that the process has gone smoothly for those of you that have done the virtual orientation, and for those of you here in the room today, I'm confident it will go fairly smoothly. Assuming you've done all your homework, I'm going to just briefly touch on a few areas of our policies and procedures that deserve just a little bit of special attention. First, Angel Flight West expects that at all times we conduct ourselves professionally when we have contact with our passengers. Many of them are sometimes very anxious about the illness that they have and always concerned about how they're going to get to treatment and so forth. This may be their first flight in a small general aviation aircraft. Due to the frequency of their treatments, some of them may actually have more hours as a passenger in a small aircraft than some of us have as PIC. No doubt you are keenly aware that among the mission objectives, safety is our primary concern. And that being said, Angel Flight West encourages its command pilots to cancel a planned mission at any time there's any doubt of successful completion of that mission due to either weather conditions or some other issue. We actually implore our pilots to err on the side of caution. No pilot will ever be questioned or chastised for canceling a mission. I want to make that very clear. Always remember that our passengers are advised in advance that they must have a backup plan for that very reason. And so you shouldn't hesitate to cancel thinking that these folks have to get to point A regardless of what's going on. They all have to have a backup plan and are all warned or advised early on. And speaking of our passengers, many of them are preoccupied with their illness or treatment that they're going through and wonder if they're actually going to be able to get to their treatment. So it's really important when you're assigned a mission, please make an extra effort to contact those people just as soon as possible, so that's one less worry that they have, that they know that they have a pending ride in a small aircraft within a week or two. But just let them know as soon as you see the mission that call them, introduce yourself as their command pilot, who you are, and just give them the information they'll need for when and where you're going to pick them up. The Command Pilot Manual also addresses how to obtain missions in the first contact with the passenger once the flight is assigned to you. However, we do have unexpected cancellations, multi-leg flights, and the importance of timely communications with pilots of other legs is very important. The waiver of liability, just a quick mention on that. You've read that it's advisable to carry extra waiver forms with you in envelopes, as well as stamped envelopes, as well as a plastic bag in the event that you have to leave the waiver form behind and later recover it if necessary. Now, the Command Pilot Manual is a good resource for everyone. Please use it as a reference if you have any questions about the particular procedure, or feel free to contact your orientation pilot or your virtual mission orientation pilot if need be. Your virtual MOP or any MOP is a resource for you, and we encourage you to contact them if you have any questions or on a particular procedure. So with that, for the folks on the virtual orientation, if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them now, so please go ahead. I'm assuming there's no questions, or you hung up already?
There's a little bit of a lag with them, so
Okay.
you might want to see if anybody here has questions.
Okay. Yeah, we do want to do that. Let me, how much of a lag time do they need?
It could be a couple minutes. So.
Okay. How about in the room then? Well, we're waiting for the virtual folks to ask a question. Does anybody in the room have any questions yet? You may have later, but if not, we can answer them right now. George, we'll have you up in a second as soon as we get a response here on questions.
Is there ever a problem with oxygen for the passenger?
Good question. The question was, is there a problem with oxygen with passengers? We normally don't transport people that need oxygen. If we do, that'll be in the instructions that you get, and that'll be approved by a physician, and they'll generally have to bring their own. We don't supply that to our passengers.
Okay.
It's pretty rare, frankly.
I'm just thinking, you know, like a flight to Vegas or whatever. I mean, if it gets a little bumpy, I'd rather go up a little bit, you know.
Well, I'd pay attention to the FARs there. I wouldn't go any higher than, if they don't have oxygen, I wouldn't go any higher than.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we'll just hold on here. Go ahead and continue with your paperwork. We'll just hold here for a little bit to see if any of the folks on the other end here have any questions.
So one thing that we're down.
Yeah.
No questions from Walter, just replied. We have James Thompson.
James Thompson.
Oh, you don't have your certificate of insurance with you? Okay, here's what you do. You can't sign them off today because you have to have it. So just hold his paperwork and ask him to fax that information or email it to you personally. Once you get it, you sign it off on the paperwork, send it in, and then you'll be a
What
about his affirmation?
you can have him sign that now.
Why?
Yeah, you can sign that now. So all you'll need to do is sign it when you get done. Yeah.
Are you gonna have George?
Okay, wait.
This is your question.
Walter Corian is on.
What they're really telling you is, if you have some.
So I heard you say 4 people.
So we'll go back to
Two.
your.
We only had two.
Picking the passengers up. This is mostly if you're.
Okay. We'll bring George.
Yeah, yep, George did it, and then we can let these guys go.
Okay, yeah.
These two.
Yeah, that's great.
You bring, a copy home with you, but then you leave a copy somewhere, and then you leave a message somewhere, there's a waiver under the old trade. That's kind of what, it's kind of pointless, because once you make it home, it's a dead issue.
It would have been.
That's what they asked for. So you started.
There's only two.
And then what happens is,
Yes.
Okay.
Gentlemen, let's try to do a combination here of benefiting those who are online as well as yourselves,
Yes.
and maybe suspend the paperwork for now. We did this in Spokane, and it worked out very effectively. I'll make a brief comment about the comments and such, but the main thing is to open this up to a forum for questions. And as you know, questions or comments about the practical aspects of this thing lead to other information. And there's a lot of experience in this room with pilots who have flown these routes, and what's to expect. So the basic comment I'd start with is we presumed everybody has read the Command Pilot's Manual, which is intended to be a future reference, which is the Angel Flight West procedures and processes. It cannot cover everything. So what we'd like to do at this point in time is maybe focus on a few of the elements and where there may be questions, and then highlighted by some of the practical experiences. So let's start with the first. The aspect of looking for and signing up for missions of any kind. Comments or questions about what you've read, any clarifications on that point?
Just a question about the experience. How often does that? I think the online sign-up seems fairly self-explanatory and pretty straightforward. But how often does that do missions get changed, canceled, scrubbed?
How often the missions get canceled, changed, or scrubbed is the question. Where's Josh?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
What am I,
Sure.
child liver?
Hardly, my dear. So how often do the missions get canceled, scrubbed, or changed?
So about 30%, give or take, of our missions get canceled. However, that is a variety of reasons. So of that 30%, about 60% of those missions that cancel are by the passenger because their appointment got canceled, they're too sick to fly, whatever the reason might be. And then the other reasons are weather, and then the other major reasons are weather and no pilot.
Or equipment. Pilots have equipment problems too, sometimes, once in a while.
Does that answer your question?
So kind of even though, particularly like in a three-leg mission, tend to be more complicated. Your segment of that may be a go, and you might be the third segment, you're the third leg. First segment might be a go, middle segment, no pilot. So the entire mission will go away for lack of pilot, just because of the one.
Yeah. But there was the other aspect that was brought up today, which I think is a good one, on a multi-leg missions, and for those that, the missions are geared for 200 to 300 miles per leg, and so some of our missions are 600 to 800 miles, so it takes multiple legs. You can sign up for the whole leg if you want. The whole mission from source to destination. Alternately, what we say is if you are part of a multi-leg mission, you sign up for a leg, contact the other pilots, because this is now a coordination responsibility between the pilots of all legs and the passenger. And the pilot on the first leg needs to be in immediate contact with the passenger. The weights that are listed for the passenger and their baggage need to be confirmed, and also need to emphasize to the passenger that we need you to adhere to what you've committed to, because the second plane or the third plane may be of a different configuration. The first plane's a 210, first leg is a 210, the next leg is a 172. Guess what? Different gross, different useful loads. So the first pilot has some additional responsibility in talking with the passenger, lining up things ahead of time, also keeping the passenger informed. If weather looks marginal, be talking to them, and why things look a little marginal. It's for your safety as a pilot, their safety as a passenger, your family who is interested in your health and well-being. That the flights are made safely. And so that's part of the initial sign-up that people need to be aware. And I always suggest that if you have questions at any point in time, you've got the mission orientation pilots you can draw on, give them a call. You've got the office you can call on. So do not hesitate if you have any questions about a mission or the construct of it. Does that help a bit? Any questions online here?
I think it might be important to add that you can also adjust the legs, like what we're seeing with the pilots.
Oh, yes.
You can adjust it. But like, let's say there's 3 legs and you can only fill 2 of them. Maybe the 2 of you might want to decide on a midpoint.
Yeah.
You got 2-leg flight, right? Yeah. You're open to do that.
Yeah. Excellent point. For those who are listening, are they still online?
They're still online. No
Okay.
questions yet.
For those that are online, the point was raised that between the pilots you can coordinate changeover points or extending the configuration of the flight between you. I've done that. Instead of stopping at somebody come from Montana, instead of stopping at Spokane Geiger, let's stop at Coeur d'Alene where they have a restaurant. You can have lunch type things, or it's an easier field to get into, or there's a NOTAM out. And so pilot coordination is expected, it's normal, and once you agree to take the missions between you, especially multi-leg, you have some latitude to conduct the mission effectively and safely. And on one leg, it was pointed out this morning, a pilot flew one leg, it was fairly long, in fact, and he's here. And the next pilot landed, loaded up the passenger, and then had an engine malfunction, a starter, as I recall. So the first pilot rerouted himself and actually took it upon himself to take the next leg. And thank you. So that was the thing. Any other questions on signing up for a mission and what's required at the start? Let's take the next phase. You're ready to conduct the mission with the passenger. You have decided, you can conduct it safely, whatever the weather and equipment. And so you make arrangements with the passenger where to meet. That's all pretty common. Some of your destinations are rather remote, aren't they? So what do you do if you're going to be taking a passenger, especially to a remote destination? Let's say, a strip that's an airport all by itself with no attendants, no tower, no nothing, and the nearest town is several miles away. You have some requirements here from AFW, and it's in the document. If you're picking up passengers in remote sites, but if you're depositing passengers in remote sites, what do you need to do before you leave?
Sign the waiver.
Pardon?
Sign the waiver.
Sign the waiver is one of the things. Let me give you an example. I took a passenger to a place called Electric City in eastern Washington. It's 5 miles from town. It's an airport only. It's 110 degrees when we're going to get there. The person just got out of the hospital and we're taking her back. The question was, who's picking you up? My question to the passenger. The passenger said, I'll call my sister when I get there. This is an example of a case, unless you want to sit there in an afternoon in the hot sun also, or have to do something else, neither of you are going to be in the best condition. So why leave until you are assured that the passenger has transportation? She tried her sister 3 times, no answer. She tried 3 other people. On the 4th person, she finally found somebody, made arrangements. That person was there to pick her up. But just imagine if we had not taken that exercise. So don't expect the passengers to be thinking ahead, especially they may be coming out of a medical treatment. They're thinking about other things. So again, you're professional pilots. My view is any of you are doing this are professionals. think ahead, and for your safety, the convenience, and the passenger safety. Departing, remote sit, your point was the other. You get the waiver. Nobody's in this remote airfield. What do you do with it? Some of you new command pilots. What do you do with the signed waiver?
Leave it somewhere there.
Yep. Yeah.
Put it in that plastic bag and leave it.
Yeah,
there.
leave it there. So carry with you stamped envelope, the waivers, and a plastic bag. And whether you leave it under, a rock by the gas pump, or whether you pin it into the pilot shack, call the site, call AFW, and we haven't had incidences where things have happened. But if something happened, if they knew you were picking up somebody at Electric City, they're going to send somebody out there to find those forms. But it's your, for your liability protection and AFWs that you are very religious about that. So I carry a packet of things, so we can use them. They're very easy. Any question on that? Okay.
You can do that digitally as well.
You can take a picture, scan it, and send a picture digitally as long as you got phone service. Most places you have phone service, not all places. I found a few, and I think we all have. So, in some areas you do blood transport runs, other areas you do not. So blood transport in Oregon, there is a waiver form for that. Some of the agencies have signed blank waivers, standard waivers, and you don't have to. You can always check with AFW on that one. Okay, so signing up, taking the passenger, dropping them off, take pictures. What other aspects might you be having questions about? Let's talk about the flight itself. This is not a military mission. It's not a do or die. It's important. So if you can find an if the initial plan doesn't work, a lot of these areas are mountainous, whether it be your plane or whether it be the weather or what have you. If the initial plan doesn't look like it's going to work out safely, and you can't find an alternate, then you need to tell the passenger, and it's best to say why. But also, prepare them ahead of time, and you also notify Angel Flight. Some cases they can find someone else who has different equipment, but on real short notice, that's pretty tough sometimes. But the thing is, you all want to fly another day, and so does the passenger. So that's, I personally have canceled a number of flights. I personally have diverted because of weather, sat down due to a snowstorm, played poker for 3 days in a motel. We're here today to talk about it. So there's no shame in diverting or setting down. You just don't want to have to sit down in a snowstorm with a passenger on board, worry about motels. So think ahead. Any other questions relative to the process and procedures? Okay. Well, I'd say that the main thing is you have all kinds of experience in your different wings. Your experienced command pilots and the mission orientation pilots are there to assist you. And sometimes just ask one of them if they want to go for a ride with you. Let them be your mission assistant. Yeah. How about some what ifs? Usually a group this size has some additional questions. Yeah.
Well, if you're taking a passenger and you decide you need to divert and sit down, are you responsible for taking care of them from that point until?
Well, that's a good point. I would personally look at it as follows. If I had to divert and sit down at other than the destination airport that we had planned, then I would feel a sense of responsibility. Now, the thing is, what do we do about it at that point? You have AFW resources you can talk to. I mean, it might be, if it's somewhere near, maybe the simplest thing to do is rent a car, take them, come back and get your airplane when you can. The other is, it might be as simple as, for those that are not instrument rated, had to set down because instrument conditions prevail somewhere else, maybe they can find an instrument pilot, rated pilot, to either ride with you the next leg or come and pick up the passenger. I'd say you have two things. One, safety first. Second, talk to AFW about what options. You can't, obviously, if you have to sit down, you're going to be there for a while. You can't just kick them out and say that's it.
No.
But I wouldn't expect you to think that. But that is a good question.
Generally getting in and out of the airplane.
Yeah.
Assessing their capabilities.
Good question. They're all ambulatory.
So
But-
the question for those online is, how do the passengers, what is their ability to get in and out of an airplane? We do that vetting on the phone prior to taking an admission. Now, I will tell you that the answers we get are not always 100%, and if you ever encounter somebody that you think is not appropriate for Angel Flight, then you just need to let us know. Do your best you can if you think you can get them in and out of the plane safely. If not, you need to tell that person that and call the office, and then we'll follow up with it. But,
Yeah.
the vast majority of the time, they are able, they've been vetted that they can do that.
Yeah, probably the toughest issue for some is climbing up on a high-wing airplane and getting in. My spouse has trouble doing that, and she's not in a medical condition, but she just has trouble doing it. So, depending on the airplane you have, and you know how a normal person, say a middle-aged person, might have trouble getting in or out of your airplane, just sort of plan ahead. The other one, though, is oxygen. If you're flying mountainous areas, if they are on oxygen themselves, they have a portable oxygen tank, you need to check with AFW. It should have been vetted ahead of time. Sherry?
I'm sorry.
Oxygen. If the passenger is on oxygen, portable oxygen, you have already vetted them.
We have been notified in advance, and it will say so on your mission form, and you have an option to decide whether you want to take that passenger who's carrying oxygen or not. These days, it's a lot easier than it used to be. They're usually now they're small, portable tanks, kind of the size of a thermos.
Yeah.
So they're not so it's not a big deal. But if you choose not to carry somebody with oxygen, you can always let us know that.
So if they're on oxygen and they have their own bottle, you let them use their oxygen, or you put them on yours?
You let them use their own. We never tell them that a pilot will provide oxygen, because we don't want to get in the middle of that medical issue. Your oxygen's not working properly, whatever it might be. They should have enough for the flight there and any reserve that they need for later. And the doctor has signed a form that says they're medically stable and can fly in a non-pressurized aircraft. So even though they may have some respiratory complications, it's still safe for them to fly in a non-pressurized plane.
Yeah. Now, there is another element to this, though. A lot of our terrain around here, and that we all fly, you're 10, 11, 12,000 feet at times, and your passenger may not be on oxygen, carrying oxygen, but they may be suffering some hypoxia. So you need to be thinking a little bit ahead. My recommendation is fairly simple. I carry a little $15 pulse oximeter with me, and I use it for myself too. But the thing is, you need to inform the passenger of the altitude you're going to be flying, and if they have experienced any problems, in normal commercial airplanes at altitude, or if they expect to at this altitude. If somebody's having problems breathing, then again, questioning ahead to see if it's going to be a problem. But if you have a little pulse oximeter with you and they start feeling a little bit woozy or what have you, it's real easy to take a quick look and see if the oxygen concentration is falling significantly below 90%. And I think 80 is sort of red line.
Yeah, we've got time for 2 more questions. Anybody else?
I just maybe make a comment. Going back to that ingress egress question, a couple of things that I look for in before signing up for the mission is, you look at the baggage list. If there's a wheelchair there, that's a tip. You look at the condition. What is the condition? They'll give you a couple of words on what their condition might be. That might help you out a little bit. And you might still wind up taking the mission, but you might think about a mission assistant because it might be more helpful if you got somebody that looks like they have ambulatory issues, notwithstanding what, Santa Monica's already vetted. You could use some help, if not even in getting in and out of the plane, perhaps during the flight, just allowing you to focus on the mission. So those are a couple of things that to kind of look for. Of course,
Walkers.
Yeah, let me make one more quick question on that. If the passenger you're taking, you can always, it's always a good thing to ask them if this is their first mission. So if they've ever been on one, then they already know the process and they're going to have sort of self-eliminated themselves if it's not appropriate. But if it is their first mission, you can direct them to our website. Down at the bottom of the page, there's a link called How It Works. Click on that word, and there's a little video. It's a short 3-minute video that shows people getting in and out of a small high-wing aircraft and a low-wing aircraft in the baggage storage area. So I always suggest, we try and suggest it in the office, but as a pilot, as a new command pilot, it's always a good idea. Say, hey, have you ever been in a small plane? If they haven't, direct them to that video where they can watch it and have a better idea what it's like. Because a lot of people, when you say, have you ever flown in a small plane, they say, oh, yeah. I was in Hawaii once, and there was a 22-seat airplane. It was really tiny. So, you want to make sure they completely understand. Even though we vet them up front, you're just not sure. So.
Okay, we do have one question from somebody online, and the question is, does the electronic waiver form relieve the pilot from the responsibility of a printed form if he knows that it's been transmitted? Yes, it does relieve him.
I just wanted to emphasize also that when you call your prospective passengers, verify the weights. You really got to do that because they'll say 50 pounds of baggage and then they'll have 125 and more. They'll take their father instead of their mother and just verify it.
Or sometimes the other one is maybe the mother was planning on being the passenger with a child.
Yeah.
And the father is a substitute, and he's twice the weight of the mother. So.
the location's another big one. Make sure it's the FBO, not the passenger terminal. Make sure if there's more than one FBO, make sure you got a really good agreement, understanding about exactly where they're going to be.
Okay, well, I think we're done with the virtual.
So,
we will continue the Q&A because this is where we find out more about the questions people have, as well as trying to clarify it.
those of you that are virtually now, you can go ahead and log off, and we will contact you early next week about getting your paperwork signed off. Thank you very much for participating, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye. Just close the computer. Oh, the window.
Should be an end. Stop broadcast. And stop broadcast.
Oh, you mean the big red button? And now they're watching me act like a dope?